What do you think is going to get more comments? The fact that I don't have a hat or I've got this shirt on?
Let's go the shirt.
This shirt. What about you over here? You look like...
Free Jacks! And it's got a hand. The
logo's
got a hand. Free Jacks.
Oh, God.
MLR Rugby.
I love it. Okay, but this is a rugby podcast.
It is a rugby podcast.
We started it again. Another podcast.
Yeah, there's rugby to talk about. This podcast, if people didn't know, it's on Spotify.
It is on Spotify, iHeartRadio.
And Stitcher.
Some Podbean.
Google Podcasts.
And wherever else you get your podcasts, you might find us.
We are finding more people are listening.
Yes.
And not just watching on the YouTube. You take whichever one you want.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
up to you.
Exactly. That was my sex life when I
take it however you can get it.
Wherever I could get it. That's my early 20s, basically. Yeah, that's how I rolled. But if you are listening,
Tony's wearing a shirt.
I'm wearing a shirt and I'm not wearing a hat, so you probably can see it in the thumbnail.
Right.
Thumbnail, but this is how I'm dressed, and I'm not going to apologise for it.
I'm wearing a New England Free Jacks jersey from the MLR. It comes with a collar. I used to wear this to work, believe it or not.
Can we put a challenge? The person who makes the best joke in the comments about my shirt, we will read it out on the next podcast. Okay? Don't make it. I was about to say don't make it too mean, but that's kind of the point.
That's the point.
A little bit of friendly cyberbullying.
Bit of banter.
A little bit of banter.
Yeah.
Anyway, so another week has passed.
There's no international. Well, actually, there were internationals on if you were looking for second division European rugby.
Boy, was I.
Yeah, I didn't watch any of it, sadly.
Who won what, though? Do you know who won?
The Portuguese, I think, came from behind to beat the Spanish. That one I was very focused on because in my last World Rugby Rankings vid, I realised I didn't have a Portugal magnet for my whiteboard.
Oh, no.
So I just had POR written on my whiteboard.
The people of Portugal would be outraged.
If they'd lost that game...
They'd be burning effigies of you in Lisbon.
If they'd lost that game, they would have slipped off my whiteboard and not had a chance to make an appearance. But because they won, they'll be hanging about.
So you got the magnet?
I haven't, but I will make it.
You better, man. Take us through the process of making a magnet. That's what people really want to know. They don't want to hear you talk.
You go to Google Images, type in the name of the logo that you're looking for.
Wait, people are taking notes. Slow down.
Yes. Save as.
Save as.
Print it out, cut it out.
You want to click file before you go save as.
True.
Yeah,
know where you're going to save it, on your desktop or in downloads, wherever you want to put it.
Yeah, exactly.
Print it out. You'll need a printer, a colour printer.
All right. What kind of, do you have a good printer to do it?
No.
So it's just dog shit.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
They're kind of ones that look nice from afar, but they're pretty far from nice.
A little bit like Las Vegas.
Okay.
Like, when I've been to Las Vegas, everything looks incredible from a distance, and then you get closer and closer, and you're like, oh, it doesn't look as good as I thought. And then you get relatively close, and you're like, oh, yeah, it looks a bit crap. And then you get right next to it, and you knock on it, and it's plastic, and you're like, this is a piece of shit. That's it. So it's the Las Vegas. Your whiteboard is the Las Vegas of YouTube.
There you go.
Sorry to all you Las Vegians. Am I going to get cancelled for saying that?
Definitely.
Oh shit.
But yeah, there was rugby on at the weekend.
Yes.
No internationals of tier 1 nature.
Can we start with that? But I'm not talking about an actual game, but we're talking about. I'm taking control here. Okay. I don't often do this.
Ooh.
Talking about the coaching situation in New Zealand and the real brouhaha that has arisen from Fozzie basically saying that, well, good luck to NZR, but I won't be putting my hand up. And all of no people were gutted about it for next year. So explain the situation.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like, you know, if any of you got children out there, or as a child you may have done it yourself, where it's like, where some child does, in New Zealand we would say packs are sad.
Yeah, packs are sad.
Which is a New Zealand term. So it has a tantrum basically. It's like, well, I'm not going to do it then. And then as a parent you're like, okay, go to your room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but generally the normal process of appointing an All Black coach, it tends to happen in All Black cycles. Either the coach wins and they get a chance to, defend it. Essentially, that would be the way we generally would like it. But it all happens, if they lose, they're out, basically.
In recent times, it's basically come down to the World Cup. How did you go at the World Cup? If you did well at the World Cup, you get an extension. Graham Henry was obviously the exception, but he made up for it with his second shot. So the process tends to be we wait till the end of the World Cup to pick the new coach. And because down here, from the end of the World Cup, you've got 6 months until first All Blacks game. So
there's a period there.
There's a good period. Like, it's not like the Six Nations teams where, after the World Cup, literally in a couple of months, you've got international games coming up. So you could see why they might look towards a model of pre-designating a coach.
But due to, obviously, Fozzie's relatively average record and the incredible record of Scott Robinson, they were a little bit... Is this the main driver in terms of why they've changed this period?
I think New Zealand Rugby basically is on the record of saying there's fierce competition.
Yeah.
For basically
Talent.
For Razor,
Yeah. So he could get snapped up by Scotland or Ireland.
There'll be a few
probably not
takers. Ireland has already extended any further, I think. But there's certainly going to be people vying for his signature.
Anybody who has a dunger of a World Cup, there will be teams that have a dunger of the World Cup will be looking for coaches. But then it's at the World Cup period again because so they're worried there's going to be a pre-appointment in some of those.
So they're getting in early.
Which you can understand.
Fozzie doesn't appreciate it.
No, he doesn't appreciate it. He's gone on a number of different media outlets and said that he's very disappointed with the process and that he feels that the NZR have handled this badly. To be fair on Fozzie, it's definitely not a good look for the NZR to having this. One thing the NZR are doing really badly at the moment is they're all last year and this year they've started the same way as airing their dirty laundry, like just not handling things behind closed doors, which is kind of what you get the feeling All Black teams have always done in the past and any of these appointments or any of the culture issues or anything like that. But it's just out there and it's kind of like a raw festering wound that everyone can just now poke at.
Previously, they've always kind of seemed in control. And it may have been a madhouse in the background, but the picture they've painted is they've got their ducks in a row, basically. But right now, you can tell they've gone from this position where they're backing Fozzie to the hilt to the point where they're getting ready to sack him and pretty much got Razor lined up until the All Blacks get that win in Joburg and they do a 180 on that one again. Yeah. And then they go back to backing Fozzie. And now they've kind of flipped again and saying, well, we've backed you, but only until the World Cup.
Look, I feel for Fozzie that this is happening, and I don't think it's a great thing for the All Blacks in terms of whether it's going to cause a distraction.
It's a distraction, for sure.
And all that sort of shit. But then on the other hand, like, they gave you another shot, and then you lost the weekend after to Argentina. You could have very easily lost for the first time to Japan. That was a close run thing.
Yeah.
And then you weren't overly convincing in Europe in November. So if your results were better, and if you had a better, if you didn't have the worst New Zealand coaching record of all time, is it not all time, but of the modern era essentially, you'd be in a much stronger position. So you kind of made your own bed. But from my perspective, I hope that him and also the players that are loyal to him sort of get a bit offended by this and like take the bit between their teeth and go, well, stick it up your ass, NZR. We're gonna prove you wrong, and by proving them wrong, they're gonna make us all bloody happy. And then he can ride off to the sunset, and then Razor or maybe Jamie Joseph can pick up the scraps of what's left over because there's not a lot of players left after the World Cup.
A lot of them leaving for sure,
and then see what we can do from there.
Yeah.
So it's a real tricky beast on an ultra. Do you feel for Fozzie?
I mean, it's a results-based business. I mean, in rugby, compared to a lot of other sports, is actually not that cutthroat. He's been shown a decent amount of leeway. Looking at how many other coaches got the axe at the end of last year.
Absolutely. So, I would say Dave Rennie and also Eddie Jones, in comparative to the expectations for those teams, they did better than Fozzie did. I don't think PVAC did.
No.
But
no. No one's arguing that point, I don't think.
But then also Wayne Gatlin's...
Warren Gatland, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Warren. He's pooping... Is he pooping the bed or has he just got a bed...
Maybe the problems go deeper than just
Maybe
the coach.
he's just inherited a bed full of shit in the first place.
Somebody shit the bed.
Yeah.
No, he's rolling in it.
Rolling in someone else's shit is so much worse than rolling in your own shit.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Yeah. Do you had any bad feces experiences? I have.
Rugby podcasts.
Can we go on a small tangent about? Okay, we'll put a pin in that. Can we come back to it?
Okay, we'll come back to it. I do actually want to talk a little bit at the end of the podcast about a couple of other sports. I know this is mainly rugby, but why don't we put a time for the viewers? You can put a time stamp here.
Oh, I did
if you want to skip through to the feces here, and if you want to skip through the other sports
here. We can't do that because I got really lazy in the edit last week.
You forgot.
And I said, because I was like, the rest of it doesn't have any swear words, I can just put it in. in, bang. And then I was listening to it in the car, and I said something like, Fiji's population will be here.
Oh, you didn't do it.
I never did it, so
Okay.
I don't know. So we'll never know what Fiji's population is. But no, just before we move on, who's going to be the next All Black coach? Because we're going to know in 4 to 6 weeks, apparently.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously Razor's the front runner, I think, by a wee way, but it would totally not surprise me for New Zealand Rugby just to pick somebody else. I mean, you mentioned Jamie Joseph, who's the other guy his name's being thrown about, and even Joe Schmidt's name is just sneaking into the picture a wee bit.
But does he want it? Because he kind of got out of it because...
Yeah, there's been mixed reports. A lot of them historically have said, he's been looking to spend more time with family, he doesn't want an international gig, but then maybe now that he's back home, the allure of the All Blacks coaching role, maybe.
The All Black jersey will get him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but you never know.
It would, well, they generally, what they look for in the coach is international success elsewhere.
That's the one thing Razor doesn't.
And that's the one thing Razor doesn't have. But no coach has ever won 6 Super Rugby titles on the trot. Won an under 20, won an under 20 World Cup.
Multiple ITM Cups or whatever were at the time.
Basically everything he's touched has turned to gold.
Pretty much. He's had, I think, one of his under 20s years they didn't do well, and then one of his Canterbury years, like not Crusaders, like NPC, I think they didn't win. So I think he's had two campaigns out of whatever that he didn't lift the trophy.
If anyone could screw the pooch and kick away the golden goose, it would be the NZR.
At the moment,
yeah.
It would be just like them to be like, right, we need to get this person locked in, and then be like, let's just go with this guy.
We'll go through the process properly and be like, well, Jamie, just interview better.
Yeah.
He was really compelling.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Jamie Joseph would bring Tony Brown. Tony Brown's a very good rugby. And to be honest with you, if Jamie Joseph was the next coach, I'd be like, kind of gutted that we didn't get Razor, but not gutted that we had Jamie Joseph.
No, I think
Jamie Joseph is a very, very quality coach. But for my money, this is Razor's time. It's got to be. And
otherwise, it basically sends the message to every Super Rugby coach that no matter what you do, you're not anywhere near the All Blacks job, and you need to be looking abroad. Yeah,
if you're really good, you need to get offshore.
Yeah. So that's a weird situation.
It is a weird situation. But anybody else that could... Leon McDonald's not going to...
I think he's on the coaching ticket with Razor as to be one of like the assistants or something.
And Jason Ryan would stay, wouldn't he?
I think so, because he's thick as thieves with Razor.
With Razor Ray.
Yeah.
Oh, exciting times.
New Zealand Rugby.
I kept on... I don't know if I was dreaming, and it was probably wouldn't be the right thing. I don't know, but when... Fozzie was getting all bullshit in the media going, I just don't like how this is being handled. Because I may be the worst coach we've ever had, but it's not fair.
Yeah.
I kept on, we're talking about him. Nothing personal against Fozzie. I act like a real prick to him. I really do. Not that he gives a rat's ass about me.
Smash that dislike button, Fozzie. Smash that dislike.
It's on your channel.
Okay, that's fine. It's an engagement.
It's an engagement. And make sure to cyberbully for the shit.
Yeah.
We like that sort of engagement. Just by the way, if you want to cyberbully the shirt, putting F-bombs and stuff into it,
we'll probably get it put in the restricted. So you got to keep it relatively
we won't even
clean.
see it. So just keep it clean, but keep it creative.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was I saying? I was
something about
being
Fozzie.
I was secretly hoping that it was going to be a headline that was going to be like, I just couldn't take it and I quit, And then he was just going to throw his toys out this year, and then obviously it would have been bad for the All Blacks, and obviously not the greatest thing for the NZR. But for me, there would have been like, we need a hero, and Razor Ray comes in with a fucking G-string on. Sorry, I'm getting into a fantasy now.
Yeah.
And that was never quite on the cards.
No.
But hey, anyway, I think we've dissected that pretty uniquely.
Yeah.
In a sort of special kind of way that we dissect.
Unique and special. That's what you get.
Exactly.
Here on 2 Cents Gets Distracted,
100%,
a rugby podcast,
100%.
Which features Fozzie talk and
it's like a reading class for dyslexic autistic kids.
Are you dyslexic?
No. Well, my father was dyslexic, but I do lots of type. I do lots of writing, but I do a lot of grammatical errors.
Okay.
I have ADHD.
Okay.
If anyone else could have noticed. Hence why it's called distracted.
Right. Because you're easily distracted.
Yes. Yeah.
My dad has mentioned you often get on tangents, and I said, "Remember."
Yeah, well, you played me a thing. He's like, but he didn't call me unique. He said
unusual.
Unusual. He's an unusual, and your father is an unusual chap. So I was like, takes one to know one, Gazza.
Just Gazza.
Yeah, Gazza's the man though.
He might still be listening because he probably gets through the first 20 odd minutes before.
Well, what do we got? Oh, we can never see the time. Yeah. Okay. Well, next issue. I really took the balls by the horn.
Did you watch any Super Rugby at the weekend?
I bloody well did. And all of it was
Super Round!
Super Pound as well. Like, first thing off the bat, every game felt like a mismatch.
Right. For those of you who didn't watch it, you had Crusaders Highlanders 52-15.
Yeah.
Moana Pacifica Chiefs 52-29. Waratahs 46 drew at 17.
Yeah.
You had the Reds 71-20 against the Force. And then two close games.
I didn't watch that one.
Two close games. Brumbies 25, Blues 20, and then Hurricanes 39, Rebels 33. So of the games, there were only two that were kind of within a score. Everything else was a massive blowout.
It was this Super Round. And the NRL has a Magic Round, which is the same concept, but it plays at Suncorp.
Right.
The only difference is the actual people are interested and they go along.
Can I give you what I think my understanding of the Super Round is?
Yeah, give it to me with those hands of yours.
The Super Round, as far as I'm aware, it's organised with the government of Victoria and a promoter, where basically they are trying to get people into Melbourne to kind of boost the economy, get some tourists in, and people are going to come watch rugby, and they time it to be before the AFL season starts. So AFL hasn't started yet, it's still pre-season. So they're trying to get people in before the AFL starts, get a bunch of tourists to come to Melbourne, spend some money while they're there. And I don't know anyone who travelled to Melbourne for that one.
I definitely don't.
It basically looked like whoever was like a Fijian or Kiwi
in Melbourne,
or any like Reds fans or whatever who just happened to be based in Melbourne
and like didn't have like a kid's birthday on that day. Or something, It was piss poor. The whole
attendance
thing
is not great. It's not that super.
It was not super at all. It kind of looked very sad. Looking at the crowd, I was like, this is just pathetic. And nothing about it. There wasn't like that sort of carnival atmosphere that you want to create with that sort of thing. And I think it did more damage for Super Rugby than anything else. People, nobody went to travel there because, it's not like Europe and where things aren't that close. And currently in New Zealand, Super Rugby in general isn't getting a huge amount of buzz.
Yeah.
And I don't think, people outside, getting to Melbourne's quite far away from everywhere else.
Cost of living is up and inflation and whatnot, exactly. So people don't necessarily have that spending money to pop on a flight to Melbourne.
How many people
did you even in the, corner of your mind think I might go to Melbourne for the Super Round, watch some games?
I didn't even feel excited about watching any of it on
TV, right.
I wasn't, it didn't blip, it wasn't a blip, it wasn't anything, it was just, it just looked so sad. And even imagine if we were like, this is going to be our year, Mark, and we do our, we road tripped over there, well not road trip, but we fly over, it's going to be a hell of a drive. We need one of those hovercrafts that goes over water. And we get real pumped about it. And then you get there and you're like...
Oh, he can sit wherever you want.
Well, at least I can sit next to the freaking Eddie Jones.
Did you see him taking his notes?
Yeah, he's taking notes. He was sitting next to some random.
There was a shot over his shoulder where he's got all the names of his next camp, Wallabies camp. He's got all the names written down.
Liam Gleeson, is it Gleeson? Not Liam Gleeson.
Lungy Gleeson.
Lungy Gleeson. He looks like a quality player.
He's tasty.
Yeah, he looks very good. Very good. Australian player there. And then all the games were kind of just absolute hammerings. But just on the point of Melbourne, people of Melbourne don't give a shit about rugby union.
Yeah.
They don't know the difference between rugby union and rugby league.
Yeah.
AFL is a freaking religion over there.
People don't. I don't know if you understand. I don't think if I understood it until because I got family in Melbourne. We went to visit my aunt.
Yeah.
And just looking at the newspaper. It's the back page is all the sports, and it's literally full page AFL, full page AFL, full page AFL, and then they've got an incredibly successful rugby league team, unbelievably successful. And there's one small piece on them, and then you flick over the next page. At least the Storm had a picture.
Yeah, well,
the Super Rugby had a little. I mean, the Rebels aren't
a big deal.
A big deal.
No.
I mean, the Storm in Melbourne, compared to...
The Storm are one of the best NRL teams. The Storm did this, the incredible thing of got all the best talent from Queensland and built a dynasty around them.
Yeah.
And they've had Craig Bellamy, who's a brilliant
But even
coach.
then, compared to the AFL teams...
No one gives a rat's.
That's right.
Like Cameron Smith, who played, probably don't know, one of the greatest
I think even I know him.
NRL players of all time. He could walk down the street, in Melbourne, and no one would notice, even though he plays for that town.
Melbourne's an AFL.
And I think that's part of what the NRL players like about it. They've got
anonymity,
yeah, which is pretty cool. But and then also in terms of how unsuccessful it was, you contrast that to it was the opening weekend of the NRL this weekend.
Okay.
And it was the highest ratings for Fox Sports of all time this week. It was opening round.
Wow.
The games were great. They were packed out. They had a new team that had come in, the Dolphins.
Where are they based?
They're based out of, it's in Queensland, Redmond Dolphins or something. I can't remember exactly, but Wayne Bennett was maybe the greatest coach of all time is coaching them, and everyone thought they were going to get
former Broncos coach.
Yeah, former Broncos coach, former St George coach, former Newcastle coach, but he had most of his success with the Broncos.
Okay. If even I know him, he must be pretty famous.
So he was coaching the Dolphins, and they didn't. Everyone was worried about their recruitment. They missed out on so many recruits. They were playing one of the big guns, the Roosters, and then they got up and they got a win.
Nice.
And found 35,000 people at Suncorp. So it was.
Do they play at Suncorp? Is they going to have two Suncorp-based teams?
I think one of their teams they'll have a bit of Suncorp there. I think they've got another stadium where it's a smaller sort of more they have these really cool like Oniwa Domain sort of suburban parks and stuff that can only fit like 15,000, 20,000
It's like the
people.
one the Waratahs were playing at last year, which looked amazing on camera.
Campbelltown and stuff like that.
Okay.
They get incredible atmosphere. And like Oniwa Domain back in the day, when you got 20,000 people
small
in there,
grounds if you pack them out, man.
And it used to go bananas, you know.
Difference between 15,000 people at a small ground where it's packed to Eden Park where it's 50,000.
You go to even 15,000 at North Harbour Stadium is pretty depressing.
Yeah.
You know?
So Super Round wasn't that super. The biggest talking point of the Super Round wasn't even really about rugby stuff. It was on discipline stuff. The old throat-slitting gesture.
Yeah, we're going to get demonetized for that.
Maybe.
I've got mixed feelings about the whole thing.
Okay. Give us your take.
For
those of you who don't know, Ardie Savia did a throat-slitting gesture to former drugs cheat Ryan Lawrence, the South African Rebels halfback. He's a yappy halfback, as he should be. It's part of the job.
And as somebody who's really good at winding people up, I can just imagine what Ryan would have said. Because it was at that moment where Ardie was getting sin-binned for it was repeated infringements or something like that. And he would have...
There was a bit of handbags. I think Dane Coles had caused a bit of a scuffle, and then Ardie comes charging in, and Ardie for not instigating. What is it like? Where you raise the level of the animosity? There's a word for that. I don't know what it is.
I can't think of it either. But he would have just said something very, very small, just as he goes by. Just as somebody's been winding some people up for years, just a perfectly placed eat shit. Yeah. You know, just like. That was dumb. Yeah. Like, can make someone just go, who's already angry, go, I tried my best not to do it. Eat shit, C word is what I wanted to think. Right. Like, you know, like, it can make someone who's already fuming just go, ugh. Yeah. So, in that moment, those are the moments you see those crazy sort of viral videos where someone just gets whacked and stuff. Yeah. He didn't whack him, but he just said, when I come back out here, I'm going to freaking
Plus, at the time, the Hurricanes were flogging them on the scoreboard as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was, definitely not an appropriate thing to do, but it happens on rugby fields every weekend all around the world. But, especially for someone like Ardie Savia,
who's got a reputation as being
one of the nice guys and all that sort of stuff. He just had a brain fart. He got, but for my money, like the people out there saying, well, he's had his punishment, and we're like, no, he said sorry, which is great. I think he's handled it. Yeah, but he's front-footed it.
Immediately in the post-match press conference, not even press conference, just the after-match.
Yeah, I think he's handled it like an absolute pro.
He owned it 100%.
That's not the punishment.
No.
The punishment is a punishment.
Yeah.
And as an All Black supporter, him taking a couple of weeks off, I'm totally fine with. Just because we are going to be so reliant on him at the back end of the year.
So having him a couple of weeks fresher.
Just a guy, a little bit of Graham Henry rest and rotation on him.
I see where you come from. I hadn't thought of that angle.
Just a little 2 to 3 week break. Just get him refreshed, get him angry and hungry on the sidelines and get his fitness up or whatever you want to do with him. Like he'll be beating himself up and just get that going. And look, I'm not going to sweat it over a couple of losses to the Hurricanes with him not being out there. Like, so from a Blues and All Black perspective,
it's perfect.
I'm like,
okay.
It was an ugly thing. But
what about the actual, like the legality of what they've done? So they've cited him. This is the last I've heard about it, based on current news as we record. And the reason you get cited,
you probably know more about it than
probably. You probably know the outcome. But the whole thing with the citing is they cite people if they go back and look at the game and find something that should have been a red card at the time. Would you look at that and go, oh, "That's a red card"? Because the law that he broke was just being unsportsmanlike, basically.
Being a douche. Being an angry douche.
But there's so much unsportsmanlike stuff which goes on, which doesn't get pinged, like handbags, pushing and shoving. Even Elizabeth Alnatoa, that's not sportsmanlike,
exactly.
but
No,
that's
it's not.
it's tolerated. The referee's just, there's nothing there, play on. Tell your players to calm down.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, is that markedly... Well, some people have like literally said, like, nah, this throat-slitting, threat of death, like, this is much worse.
Well,
other people have said, nah, piss off, this is nothing.
The only thing I can compare it to, in a way, was... it was a Warriors player last year. Was it Kosi? I don't think it was Kosi. It was one of the players. But one of the players went down after a hit, and he was trying to milk it for a penalty.
Right.
And he yelled at him on the field, and it got picked up by the mics. If it didn't get picked up by the mics, no one would have batted an eyelid about it. But he said, "Get up, you F word."
Right.
F word rhyming with Bob Saget.
Okay.
So like, and that was caught on the mics and stuff like that. He got a 4 or 5 weeks of suspension for that, and there was a big. And he apologized. He went out there and all that sort of thing. I'm like, is that worse than saying I'm going to kill someone? I don't think. In this day and age, I can understand why that sort of a slur like that can be pretty. It gets people pretty irate. It's a weird kind of grey area. I reckon he'll get 2 or 3 weeks. I really do.
I think I've heard the book.
And I think that's okay.
They'll make an example of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that law about being unsportsmanlike is just so grey. Like, where do you draw the line? Do you draw it at pushing and shoving? Do you draw it at swearing? And like Joe Marler got suspended for calling out somebody's mother for being...
What about him pulling on people's dicks all the time?
Yeah, I know. But where do you draw the line, man?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there's so much stuff that goes on in a rugby field. Like you say, you watch club rugby, goodness gracious.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you're out on a field, like...
Yeah.
The amount of times I got called a Bob Saget. Sheepers creepers.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, I was running around with a Kalen Doris, and I got called a Bob Saget.
Yeah, exactly. That's a weird one.
It is weird. What do you think should happen?
A lot of people seem to be taking the whole, thing about the kids that were watching. They're like, I watch rugby
Think about the children,
I know,
man.
basically, somebody think of the children. I watch rugby with my son. And he's never commented, he's seen the handbags and stuff, and he kind of gets it, like they're angry at each other, like that's not what you should be doing. Like, he's never replicated that on the rugby field. Like, nobody's ever ripped off his tag and he's like grabbed them by the collar and started calling them names. You know what I mean? He doesn't emulate that. He's not like... Yeah,
I don't know. Well, maybe it's like, it's not... We're not worried about the 5 and 6 year olds watching it. Like, obviously, it's not good for
teenagers.
Yeah, but you watch the 13 and 14 year olds. I want to be like Dane Coles, who fires up people and puts a needle in and gets the opposition to make a mistake. And then there are coaches who even will will gently encourage that sort of thing as well. Like, get stuck into them before they get stuck into you. It's a weird kind of. It's. I don't think anyone. Well, the other thing is, in comparison to what the haka is, and the
a lot of comparisons
with
the
haka. Kapo Pango, when it first came out, they were all... And the way freaking Piri Weeper used to do it, and he'd, roll the eyes back in his head, it was freaking demonish. Looked badass. Yeah. But, and I don't mind it as a bit of theatre. Yeah. But is that different to being actually on the field saying, I'm going to...
Well, they definitely toned it down since then. And I think they reckon the gesture now, which is usually more across the chest, is about bringing the power into your lungs or something.
Rico still does that.
Rico still does the a few of the guys do.
I reckon they're going to get pulled up for it now that they've now that particular gesture is now on the frame of reference, it's kind of the zeitgeist again, because when it first came out, I remember the All Blacks, when they first came out, they were like, they tried to use the line of we're talking about being on the cutting edge of sport. That was the line that they used.
Right.
Sure. It's not, I'm going to kill you and turn your head into a fucking cock rag.
Yeah.
Should that be the thumbnail? I'm going to turn your head into a cockroach.
Do it. We're not going to get demonetized at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, ultimately, it seems like a bit of a mountain out of a molehill for mine.
Yeah.
But people will certainly take that gesture with more seriousness than others. Like some people have literally said, like, man, that's a police threat. Like, you should be like locking the guy up because that's a threat on the guy's life.
Who said that?
People on social media.
All right.
I don't think it's that bad.
Was it Steve?
Probably Steve. Danny, Steve. But yeah.
Yeah, well, at least it's something to bloody talk about, and we need that.
Right? Yeah, because all the other games were mostly hidings.
Well,
the Rebels did alright in that game, though.
Yeah, they played alright. Considering the Rebels lost the week before to the Force, and the Force got absolutely pumped
by the Reds. Yeah,
which I didn't see coming.
71 points. Who saw that coming? Yeah. That's embarrassing.
That is embarrassing. So where does that place the Force? And the Force lost to the Hurricanes the week before, didn't they?
No, the Force beat the Rebels the week before.
Oh, no.
The Reds lost to the Hurricanes.
Reds lost to the Hurricanes, who had a close game with the Rebels. But
yeah, so the Hurricanes have played the Reds.
And the Force beat the rugby math.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's hard to do what you do.
Basically, you would have thought that the Rebels wouldn't get that close based on the round 1 results.
Yeah.
But they did. They were the only team at home, so maybe they should.
You know what pisses me off? That was a home game for the Blues.
Home game for the Blues, home game for the Crusaders, although they won.
We're Blues fans. Can we talk about that game?
Moana Pacifica, that was their home game. Yeah, the Force, that was their home game. Bloody hell. Yeah, no points in the second half for the Blues.
I thought it was just too hot for our fellas.
I think so. It was pretty hot in Melbourne.
Yeah. Playing in I felt like that needed to be a Saturday night or a Friday night game. It was the best billing. Like Sunday afternoon, the matinee basically is, for the lower end of the table. I thought that was going to be one of your real blockbusters. I would have liked to have seen that in the cool night air. But there was some concerning signs in the fact I think that the Blues' fitness wasn't quite there. They were playing in blistering heat.
Yeah.
Sonny Bill got his guns out.
That was crazy in a singlet. Yeah.
And they lacked a lot of cohesiveness.
Yeah.
But then there are certain players that I'm a little bit worried about, talking about All Blacks in particular. I think Rico and Beauden Barrett look pretty disinterested. I think...
Bodie got us out of jail a few times at the back when we're under pressure.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I just think it's vibe. It's his marbo of the thing. Doesn't he?
He looks like he's waiting for the All Blacks and then he wants to get off to Japan.
Maybe. And then I thought Rico, not throwing that pass to Roger. Yeah. But Roger looked pretty good.
Roger looks fired up. Roger's a man fighting for an All Black spot.
Yeah. And boy, that's a fight. David Afili played really well this weekend. And Geordie Barrett showed the All Blacks something pretty special at the end of last year as well. So, that's going to be really fascinating. I feel like the rugby heads amongst us that don't like both, who are discriminant towards the 13-man code like yourself, I think you guys don't quite realise how good RTS is. Okay. Because he is a freakish athlete.
Okay.
I would love to see him with a little bit more space around him, but that ability to shimmy, step, break a tackle, and accelerate with insane speed just off the mark. His pace from 0 over 10 meters is freakish. He
shows a bit of that in Union. He gets a half gap and then he's got pretty wicked offload on him. But
I think there's a bloody good rugby player in there somewhere. But he just doesn't have a complete skill set. If he had a boot, that would help him a lot.
Yeah.
Can you see him missing the All Black party?
I think they'll keep him around the fringes, but when push comes to shove and they have to pick an All Black squad, he might be unlucky.
And
the Rugby World Cup squad, I should say.
Like the touring squad.
Rugby World Cup squad.
Yeah.
Because it's limited numbers. Although I think they're allowed to take a couple more players this year, but still.
The one that I always think about in terms of players we actually cut, 2015, there was Waisaka Naholo, Nehi Mamaskata, Julian Savia, and Charles... Piatel.
Yeah, that's Charles.
Charles Piatel, who was playing incredibly well, and one of them they had to drop. And they were all playing really, really well. And also, who did they have at the back? There was another fullback. Who was the fullback there? Ben Smith. So they had to drop one of them, and Nehi was it was really between Nehi and Piatel.
Nehi was a freak there, yeah.
Piatel was playing so well. He was playing as well as he has played ever since. And Piatel has gone on to be
Had he already signed to go overseas though?
No, I think he signed once he didn't get into the squad.
Okay.
Yeah, and he went on to be the highest playing professional rugby player in the world for a long period of time, who we just look at from afar going, I knew him before he was cool.
He's played for the Blues.
Yeah, and he would have been a great All Black, but it was still kind of the right move to leave him out. That's hard making that team, at times. Anyone else that you were impressed with in the weekend?
Well, a couple of those teams, I think maybe it was the Heat, like the Drua fell off in their second half against the Waratahs.
They were right in it until 60 minutes, eh?
Yeah. I mean, Moana Pacifica had an early bloody deficit, but they managed to score some tries.
Yeah, that's right. They went
fastest try ever in Super Rugby, like 10 seconds.
7.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And they were down like 12, 15
Highlanders looked pretty terrible.
A tough time for the Highlanders. And... okay, you could do it, but if you ask me to name 3 Highlanders right now...
Even I've not been following Super Rugby like I have in previous years, man. It's sad but true.
Yeah, it's a great Metallica song, that. So they...
Timu scored a couple of good tries at the end, though.
But it was just appalling in terms of, I guess they always talk about the dead cat bouncing, and the dead cat found a new depth, found a new level of death. Really, they are in a really dark place. Who have they got next weekend?
I don't know.
Yeah, right. Super Rugby, everybody. Everybody's pumped about it. Even Mark.
Super Rugby. The game I'm looking forward to next week is the Crusaders travelling to Fiji. I think that's going to be
that's going to be a cracker. Hopefully the Drua can just put them out of their comfort zone and teach those sheep shaggers a lesson.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Your least favourite Super Rugby team? Who is it? Is it the Crusaders?
The Crusaders are this weird one where I just want them to lose because they're so it's just
successful.
Like typical New Zealander, like, oh, you're so successful, I want you to just lose.
I don't think that's typical New Zealander. I think that's typical human.
Right.
Everyone
wants to see the
top
dynasty
dogs.
kind of
That's
fall.
why when the All Blacks lose, everyone's like, oh, eat
true.
a bag of shit. Sheep shaggers.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. And then the Welsh are like, who, me?
There was some URC on. Did you watch that at the weekend? Your team,
Munster.
It was kind of like a Super Rugby result. They beat the Scarlets, who had a terrible start to the season. The Scarlets. They went on a terrible losing run, but they were on a 4-game winning run. For all the Welsh sides who've been copping a bit of stick about not being up to speed.
The Dragons.
The Scarlets
were the Dragons?
No, there's 2 different teams. The Scarlets were on a 4-game winning run.
Yeah, this is what I get for trying to make a comment.
And Munster 49, Scarlets 42.
Ooh,
yeah, tasty.
That's 90 points.
Spicy meatball, that one.
That is a bloody tampon.
But it's a weird one at the URC at the. Oh jeez.
For a moment there, I thought you were going to pick up on it. Because there are sometimes I make them and you're just straight on to the next one.
Yeah. I notice that sometimes when I watch it back, I'm like, oh, that's what he said. Like when you're talking about Mac Hansen, you once said you made a Mbop
I just called him Mbop, and you were like,
I just brushed on straight on by. Yeah. My brother had an Mbop, not Mbop, was it Mbop?
Hansen.
The single. He had a Hansen CD.
Yeah.
But he was so embarrassed about it, he hid it in one of his drawers. I don't know why, but one day I was like looking in his room and I found it.
Abs. That freaking song slaps, man.
Yeah.
If you want to give shit to Mbop, man, that's a great pop song.
Yeah.
It's a cracking song. It's just a fantastic song.
Yeah.
I really do like that. I'm a big music. Well, I'm not the greatest musician in the world, but I really like music, and Mbop's just a cracker of a song.
But the URC is in this weird...
Bop, tip, top. I'm
You're going to get demonetized. Not allowed to use music.
Oh, sorry.
All the international guys are pretty much out. Like a lot of South African guys seem to be being arrested, and then all the Six Nations guys are out pretty much. So you're in this weird position where the competition has a fill-in round.
Exactly. Do you want to watch good rugby, but not world-class rugby?
Do you want to see some of the young guys getting a crack?
Yeah. It's time to watch at the beginning of March.
Yeah, basically.
That's how they should do the promos. You looking for the best? Or just a little bit off the best? We got you covered.
The not so super route, basically.
Oh, God, please. They're not. Are they going to do it again next year?
Don't know. If the government of Victoria wants to pay like $5 million or whatever it was, then...
So they're just going, we'll take your money, basically.
Sell out to the buyer's bidder.
I think even it didn't reflect well on the state of Victoria either.
How many people in there travel to go that way? Anyway, Also, in the URC, Leinster are still unbeaten, 15 from 15. Speaking of teams that just keep going on big runs. And they've been without their Six Nations guys for ages. They just bring up some guy from the academy, like, oh, I've never seen him before, and he just scores a hat-trick or some shit. And you're
They're building real depth in Ireland, aren't they?
Yeah, and Zebre, the Italian side, are still winless, none from 15. So the debate goes on, who's going to crack first? Is Zebre going to get a win, or are Leinster going to get a loss?
Who's going to crack a Galen Doris? Well, is that really a debate? Is that what's out there in the rugby sphere at the moment?
I'm just curious. I feel like Leinster are probably going to go unbeaten, and I feel like Zebre are probably going to not win.
Can I tell you, I know something that happened in the Northern Hemisphere? Not Six Nations. I'm definitely following the Six Nations.
Right.
Marcus Smith had an absolute
for Harlequins, yeah. Harlequins have not been playing that well, but then they smashed the Exeter Boys.
Marcus Smith getting dropped from the England squad. That's a big call.
And George Ford got brought back in.
That's a big call.
Mm-hmm. He's been the chosen one. All of last year, I think he played pretty much every game at 10.
But there's a new
regime.
New sheriff in town. And we're not talking about Ken Owens.
No.
We're like...
That's a good Welsh rugby reference. There you go.
You told me last week.
Yeah, and you remembered it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's steel trap this thing.
Hey!
So, yeah, I was quite surprised, and I think that's probably the best way to respond. It's like, play bloody well.
Put in a big shift.
And his chosen position.
There you go.
When was last? He's not getting any opportunities of. Well, he played first five obviously when they played
the first game,
round.
and then they put him on the bench. Yeah. You basically pick him to start, or you don't pick him. I don't see the point of him riding the pine.
I still think it was just a real weird decision to make Owen Farrell the captain. Like, I know you can make him in the leadership team, but just making him captain just immediately gives you a selection, quandary every week, basically.
I feel like he's one of those guys that, like, do you remember when Sonny Bill was in the All Black squad?
You look really stressed about this. I can tell you're stressed. People listening, he's touching his face a lot.
It's because
I feel like he's one of these guys.
I'm about to stick up for Owen Farrell, which is not a popular position. But when Sonny Bill was in the All Black squad, and sometimes...
You're very handsy today.
Sometimes he hadn't been...
Sometimes he had giant testicles. Look at these things. They were like a couple of ripe oranges.
Grapefruit, man. Sometimes Sonny Bill would get picked, like he hadn't been playing, or he hadn't been playing that well, and he would still get picked in the squad. And they would always be like, "Oh, he's a great guy to have around the young players. He's a great team man."
But he wasn't made it the captain.
No, but they seem to say the same thing about Farrell. He's just like a great leader.
But like he'd be around the team. Like Sonny Bill, obviously was a freakish athlete, and the fact that he was able to do what he did in league and be able to translate it into, he was a better league player than he was a union player. He was a great union player. Still. Yeah. But the fact that he was able to do what he did in Union, is very, very impressive. But he was never going to be the captain.
Right.
And they always talked about him being a real positive role model for,
That's what I'm saying.
The island players and stuff like that. And the fact that he was like uber professional, worked the hardest at the gym, did everything right, clean living, obviously being a Muslim and all that sort of stuff. You don't have to be the captain. True. You can still lead by example on the training pitch and the gym and wherever else, and team sessions and all that sort of stuff. Be a very much part of the mix in your team. You're 15, you're 22, whatever you want to do every week. But making him captain when you've got one of the most exciting talents in the world right now, Marcus Smith. You're cutting off one of your testicles, really.
Maybe it's just one of those ones where, like, I'm not, for those who maybe misinterpreted that, I'm not saying Owen Farrell is like Sonny Bill Williams. Just in case that point.
I'm sorry, and I'm very sorry.
I'm not trying to make that point to you.
I'm sorry that's now the thumbnail.
Owen Farrell is now Sonny Bill Williams. No, but just like maybe there's stuff that we don't see. That he does in the background.
There's stuff we don't see.
But maybe that's good enough for Borthwick to pick him as captain. Maybe he's just that much of a leader. I mean, there's been times
who else could be the capitan?
Maybe there's times when the best, not necessarily the best player, doesn't always get picked. Maybe he's... Yeah. I mean, I've seen him play 10 for Saracens, though, and he looks sharper.
Todd Blackadder being
captain. Schmidt for South Africa wasn't always their best hooker, but he still was always there. So.
Well, yeah, I had a mate who used to say, it doesn't matter if he's not the best player. If he's the best leader, you pick him, and then you build your squad around him.
Maybe that's Farrell.
And then Marcus Smith is just the collateral damage there.
There you go.
But he may be the best leader, but it's not the best thing for the team at the end of the day. Or maybe... Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. This is what rugby and sport punditry is all about.
Yeah.
People with opinions talking shit that doesn't matter. It doesn't affect anything.
So
beer. Those of you...
Where's the beer?
Is it behind you?
Behind you. Or is that your one?
No, I've poured half of mine. Okay. Sorry. So this drinks break is brought... Should we do a little ASMR on this one? Very close. Listen to this, everybody.
Satisfying. For you guys listening in the morning...
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry about that.
Very sorry.
But the Six Nations is coming up this weekend. Italy against Wales, the battle for the spoon.
Yeah, and Capozzo is out, isn't he?
Yeah, he's out.
See, I know things.
You've been following the rugby.
I know things.
You know your Italian rugby.
Yeah, you know Italian rugby.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's out. I think that's a massive blow.
Yeah. He's an attacking threat, that boy.
He is.
Boy.
Yeah, he's a fella. All of 15 years old.
Yep, he's the best 15-year-old I've seen play for a long time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's going to be a big hit. But who's your favourite for that game?
I feel like
there's a big deep breath.
I feel like this is again. This is not going to.
Don't say it.
This is not going to be popular thing, but I reckon the Welsh will get it done.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I feel like this is going to be so much pressure on the Italians.
You know why you're saying that though?
Why?
Because you've always been prejudiced against Italian people.
I know.
Yeah, no, you're always like, don't let those bloody eye ties watch this. Just restrict it for that whole.
It goes back to when I was a child. And my Uncle Jack, who's actually my great uncle because he was my dad's uncle, told us a story back when he was a soldier in the Second World War.
Yeah.
And in North Africa, and apparently the Italian guys waved a white flag like they were going to surrender, and then when they got in range, they started fucking shooting at them.
Oh
so
God.
I don't know whether that's true. That could be my childhood memory just going.
Yeah, there's a bunch of Italian people just unleashing a huge amount of hate on you right now. But then also...
I don't have prejudice against
Viron or whatever did that in Game of Thrones, and he made it was a real badass scene where he comes out with this flag and then they come around him and then he just slaughters them all.
Maybe I'm just remembering Game of Thrones and putting it into my childhood.
Well, the
human memory is a fallible thing.
It's a phallic thing. Yeah.
That's your human memory.
Yeah.
You picking the Italians?
Yeah, I want the Italians. No, jeez, I'm really giving it to the Welsh.
You don't like the Welsh?
Oh,
Italian fans, you can hate on me. Welsh fans, you can hate on Tony.
Hate for everybody. Who said hate's a bad thing? Well, I know if the Welsh get up, I'd be kind of happy. But I think that's not going to be that comforting to them. I think it's not going to solve any of their problems beating Italy. It is going to make things a lot worse, though, if they lose to Italy. Yeah. It's going to rub salt into that wound a lot more.
Yeah.
And I think form, you look at the form guide, you have to go with Italy. I think they're going to be a team that's going to be playing with more cohesiveness, more pride in what they're actually doing, more passion, and a greater confidence in what they can actually do. So I do legitimately think it's Italy. Why do I muck that up? It's a very easy word to say. Italy is going to take that one.
I really would like to see either side. There's good stories if either side wins. If the Italians win, fuck yeah, go Italian rugby. Yeah. If the Welsh win, oh, thank God you guys are not at the depths where we thought maybe you were at. So there's happy stories either way.
Happy times for everybody.
Who else is playing? England are playing France.
Yeah.
La Crunch.
That is going to be and still two teams, despite their losses, only one loss apiece, eh? Yeah. All the other teams only got one loss.
The two teams with two losses are playing each other.
Italy
and Wales, the two teams with two losses.
And Italy's got a loss, but Ireland hasn't got a loss, but Scotland's got one. Yeah. But it's all to play for still. Mm-hmm. Like
the only two teams are out, so
they'll desperately want the Scots to get up this week, won't they?
Everyone will be back in the Scots except the Irish.
But we'll get to that in a moment. But there is something very, very spicy, as we've said it before, about anyone taking on England. Mm-hmm. Everybody loves that encounter. Everybody likes to stick one to the homeland, the motherland, the Commonwealth heads. Everyone's got a historical beef with them. For some reason, everybody gets pissed off with their media, and it always just feels like an occasion, and it will be a big occasion. Is it Twickers? Oh, at Twickers. Can I throw a smoky out there?
Go on then.
I'm going to go with England.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to go with England. I think they've been playing better than people have been giving them credit
Farrell's
for.
going to kick his goals.
Yeah, Farrell can kick his goals. I think he can do it. I know if Italy plays... No, why I keep talking about Italy? If France plays to their full ability, they'll definitely win. But I don't think they're there. I don't think they've...
I think their man Gelange is out with a long-term injury.
Oh, and I don't think they've played... their best. And
they got 2 tight heads out, which is a weird thing. They've both been suspended. Antonio got suspended for the hit in the Irish game, and then Hawass with the old... No, was it a punch? The punch was the previous time. It was a headshot. Yeah.
No, I can see the English getting up for that.
Okay.
Which...
If they can dominate at scrum time, maybe?
Yeah, and like if they can get on the back of a Twickenham crowd, really backing them, and they can stay in the fight, and they can keep Peno at bay, and... Fico sort of
does his magic.
Yeah, does his thing. They can keep him under control. Like I think it's going to be a great game. When's that one?
That's the second game on Saturday, which is
Sunday. What's the first game on Saturday?
The Welsh in Italy, I think.
Why is it the best game of the week is always on Monday effing?
No, I think the Monday game is the Scotland-Ireland one.
Yeah, but that's the best. That's the game I'm looking forward to the most.
I thought you were saying the spoon game is the best one.
No, I think all of those games have got
pretty tasty. Yeah,
got something to them.
It's either the 2 teams trying to not be last, and the other 4 teams are still trying to
win it. Yeah, you know, like there's a lot riding on all of these games. Like there's a lot of pride. There's a lot to play for.
So Scotland, Ireland.
Do you like it when I try and list things and I say there's a lot of pride? And generally, when you talk, you should say things in threes. I should say pride, passion, and speed or something like that. But passion and speed wouldn't have really made sense. So I just go, there's a lot of pride, and then there's a lot of other things, which isn't quite saying anything really. So for those of you who picked up on that at home,
saying something but not saying anything at all.
Should we change that to the name of the podcast?
Yeah, there you go.
2 cents
says a whole bunch of bullshit.
But doesn't really say anything at all. Yeah, it's all meaningless.
Scotland, Murrayfield, home advantage against an Irish team who are red hot and that they struggle to beat in recent years.
You know what I liked about the response to the French and the French game that they were from the Scots? They were gutted.
Right.
They were absolutely filthy that they lost that game. They felt like they had the better of so many different facets of the game, which I think they did. But there was no I'm proud of the boys.
Right.
Like we did ourselves proud. We stuck in the fight. All that sort of thing. It was like
they were genuinely pissed
We
off.
should have won that game, and we screwed the pooch. We need to do better. And they have, I would not be if we weren't doing this podcast. I didn't have a YouTube channel and all that sort of stuff. It was like every year of my life, I've never done this before. But so I've never been that fixated on the Scottish. But from my neutral point of view, they have some serious world-class talent and who can beat anybody on their day.
Yeah.
Like, I thought Duhan was a little bit quiet last week. If he can start to fire up, if the Murrayfield crowd can get behind them, I still think their best game this year has been against the English. I thought they were very good against the Welsh. Against the Welsh, but I think their best game has been against the English.
Yeah.
But I think if they can play as well as they did against the English, they will be in with a fierce fight against my boys, the boys in green.
Let me ask you a question.
You can answer me any question.
When you said publicly in a video that you were kind of feeling the feels for the Scottish, what was the...
Here's the link, by the way.
What was the...
He always puts a card for me.
What was
you didn't put those cards either.
I did.
No, you didn't last time.
I sure did. I definitely did. What was the response of Scottish fans? Like, did they... you just tell me. I don't want to load the question.
Well, there was more response from the Irish fans because there's more Irish fans.
Yeah.
But the Scottish fans were happy that somebody was actually taking them seriously.
Yeah.
They were happy that someone had made a video, but then there was always just that sort of tongue in cheek going, just watch it though. It's a hard road being a Scottish fan.
That's the point I'm looking for, because pretty much every Scotland fan I've talked to on the internet says...
You should bring them all up on the phone.
Says anytime I get excited about the Scots, they're like, this is not going to end well for you, right?
Yeah.
We love it. We know we love our team as well, but this is not going to end well. But there's this weird thing in some quarters of the Irish media where at least the last couple of years I've been following it, they're these fucking Scots are so up themselves that we need to go and smash them. I'm like, where are you getting this information from?
Right.
Like, where are you? Is it the players, like, behind the scenes, like, calling up the Irish guys, we're going to fuck you up this weekend? Like, because I see nothing about the Scots talking themselves up, but there's multiple Irish pundits who are like, these fucking arrogant Scots, we need to bring them down a peg. I'm like, where are you getting it from? Leave them alone. Leave them alone!
Leave them alone! I've never seen you get this worked out.
It's just bizarre. I don't know where they get it from. It'd be like New Zealand pundits going, these fucking Aussies, they're so arrogant.
Well, we always call them arrogant. We've got that sort of cockiness to them. But I wouldn't consider the Australians comparable to their cockiness.
The Aussies don't come out every year going, we're going to get the Bledisloe.
They do. They always feel more confident than they should.
They always say...
But okay, let's not talk about Australia. We're talking about Scotland. Okay. That was an emotional response I wasn't prepared for, Mark. But like, maybe it's just Finn Russell's magnificent giant ego that just fuels all that. I don't know. Like I've never
Stuart Hogg, my dad would say he loves himself. Like he's got the hair plugs and he's image conscious. So maybe that gets up on people's tits. I don't know. And maybe like
the hair plugs get on people's tits.
I don't know. Like the fact that he should just fucking play rugby.
Now I'm thinking like hair plugs on tits.
But yeah, maybe it's Finn Russell's just like, bravado or whatever. I don't know. But yeah.
I don't know, maybe people are just irritated at the movie Braveheart.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Those bloody Scots performed by Australians.
Yeah, exactly. Old Mel. Well, look, I don't know how to respond to that because I wasn't expecting such passion, which I really loved.
Okay.
I'm all about it.
Edit that out.
No, I want it. I'm going to amp it up. We're going to make it peak the whole time. It's going to be great. But in terms of the game itself, just to bring it back, it's your job.
Reel me in.
It's your job. I can. This is going to be a real competitive clash. I don't see a huge amount of Scottish ego, and as you say, they're always like, man, it's going to go bad. But what I've been saying back to them in the comments is like, it has gone bad. Like, it doesn't mean it's going to go bad this year. Sport's an incredible thing. Like, fairy tales do happen. Like, they do happen, and from the darkest places they can happen. And that's the beautiful thing about sport. And sometimes the overwhelming favourites absolutely poop the bed, and the underdogs
get up.
But the talent's there.
Yeah, for sure.
There is talent across the squad in key positions. Like, you've got a great captain, Jamie Ritchie. You've got some great talent in the back line. Fantastic back three with options, with Ganghorn in there as well. If Finn Russell has just for that tournament, just like he can drink himself to death the rest of his life, whatever he wants to do. I shouldn't say that. That's not a great thing to say. But if he could do whatever he wants to do, go off the rails, whatever. But for whatever reason, in that period of September going into October,
into World Cup territory.
Yeah, if he can just go on that Super Saiyan level. Just pull it all together, just like players can do that. They can just get that secret sauce for a period, and they can become untouchable. And he's got that quality about him. So that's why I said in my video, I was like, something special could happen this year, Scotland. Incredibly special. Like the if you guys win the Six Nations, like I think they always go and go, well, if we win the Calcutta Cup, what a great year it's going to be. If they win the Six Nations, they'll be ecstatic. They can still get the triple threat, can't they?
The triple crown.
Acting, dancing, singing.
It's a triple threat. Hey. Triple X. What's another triple? Triple H.
Yeah, exactly.
What are triples?
Triples. So if they can do that, like there's massive potential for that team.
Irish is still going to be bloody hard.
Oh god, and that's the thing. Like
they're going for a Grand Slam.
They're going for a Grand Slam. They are the world's
number one
team. The number one team in the ranking, but for my money, they're the best team in the world right now. They're my favourites for the World Cup, and like, geez, I'll be ecstatic if they can get up. But I do just love the fairy tale element of it. If the All Blacks, the Scots, or the Irish don't win the World Cup this year,
you're going to be pissed off?
I'm going to be depressed.
What if the Argentinians win it? Michael Cheika.
Oh yeah, that would be the bit that would get me in the nuts. If the Argentinians won it, everybody likes an underdog, so I would just be like, well, I'd be like, holy.
That was unexpected.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be unexpected, and I would be somewhat.
Okay.
I'd enjoy an element of that. Yeah.
Where's the Bledisloe thing? I don't think the Aussies come out every year and say they're going to win it, but they are asked, like, do you think you can win it? And they always say yes, because who's going to say, like, no, I don't think we can win it? Like, my dad sometimes gets pissed off with, like, fucking arrogant Aussies think they're going to win it. Like, they always get asked, do you think you can win it? Despite the fact they haven't won it for, like, 20 years. But what Wallabies coach can seriously go... Wallabies can say, like, no, I don't think my players are good enough to win this trophy.
I've got an Aussie mate, Josh Ravick. He doesn't watch, but shout out to you, Josh. And he's a massive rugby fan. It's long suffering. Yeah. And every year I talk to him about the Bledisloe, and he goes, we've got some pretty good players this year.
Really?
And he goes, I know I shouldn't, but I think we can do it. Like, every year he feels...
Could do it is not the same.
But I feel like this is it. And then you get that sort of sense off them when in their interviews going, well, we're here to win it. And, like, I don't know, of course they're here to win it.
Yeah.
But there's just you don't get it with other teams where other teams will come to New Zealand and there'll be a sense of reverence towards the All Blacks, which is...
Maybe because we just play them more often.
Well, yeah, and to be fair, we shouldn't have to expect that reverence, but they're like, oh, man, there's a bloody good team, the All Blacks, and this is the pinnacle of game. And they're like, and the Australians always come and go, yeah, it's a game of footy.
Yeah.
We'll get out there and give it to them, and we think that on our day, we'll get the chocolate.
I still don't think that sounds like arrogance.
There's just this sort of undertone of confidence with the Australians, which isn't a bad thing. And the Australians are an incredibly successful sporting nation in terms of what they are able to produce. And if we could take the talent from AFL and that one sport that no one else in the world, literally no one else in the world plays, and channel that into rugby,
would be fantastic. Super Round would be great.
Super Round would have been a big deal.
Exactly.
But no, AFL's a good game to watch though. No offense to the people.
Aerial ping pong.
Have you ever watched a game?
I've been to the MCG when I was a kid. I watched the game.
I think we got onto the AFL last week.
My grandmother was a big Bombers fan.
Oh, me too.
Really?
Essendon. You ready to sing the song?
No.
See the Bombers fly up to win the premiership flag. Others try their best, but they can't get near when the Bombers fly up. Yeah. That's it.
She took me to a Essendon game when I was a child. I would have been 10. And 10-year-olds don't sit that well through sports as it is.
I think I went when I was about 15.
We're at the MCG. It's Essendon against, I think, Carlton.
Oh, yeah.
And there's not that many people there. And I'm like, okay, this is fine. And then the game finishes. And I'm like, thank fuck, we can go home now. Yeah. And they tell me, no, that was just like the curtain raiser. That was like the youth teams. And I was like, holy fuck, there's a whole nother game to go.
Stop swearing. You did really well. Yeah. You want me to be the swearer. I don't swear on you.
I mean, the atmosphere was great. I even remember that as a kid, but I felt the game pretty boring. But then I was 10 years old, so I was probably more interested in playing, I don't know, something else.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, but yeah.
I went when I was about 15 and I saw Essendon play Freo.
Okay.
I think we've had this exact conversation on the podcast before. Okay. So
I just remember my grandma giving my dad shit, saying these rugby players wouldn't be able to run around as much as these AFL players, and my dad was kind of like, "Well, these AFL players wouldn't be able to proper scrum, bitch." Well, because that was not obviously his mother. That was my mum's mum.
He shouldn't say that to his mother.
I don't know if he said bitch, but the tone was there.
You just called your own grandma bitch.
She had lots of grandkids. I wasn't her favourite.
Alright, okay. Is she still alive?
No, she passed away. She lived in Australia my whole life, so I don't
Rest in peace, Grandma.
Yeah. Cheers, Nana. But I wasn't that close to her. I was closer to my other grandma.
Yeah, we won't get into that. We won't relitigate that story.
Yeah. The Chicago Hounds. Let's give 30 seconds of MLR. The new...
I have more things to say.
The new MLR team. They played their first ever game.
How did they go?
They lost. But 10 points to 14. Great little crowd. Very vocal. Like, compared to the Super Round, very vocal crowd in Chicago.
Better than Amy Park.
Yep. So.
Well done. Well done.
Go MLR. I watched that game. It was low scoring, 14-10 against the Utah Warriors. So the Warriors had a win.
Yes. Oh, the Warriors bloody well had a win on the weekend too.
Should we get on to the sports, or do you want to go over your...
okay, so the Warriors got a win.
Do you want to go into other sports right now? You got anything else to say about rugby?
What else have we got? So
this weekend... Six Nations, Super Rugby, URC.
We never do official picks. So Wales, Italy, you're picking Wales.
I'm going Wales.
Italy. England, France. I'm picking England.
Just to be contrary, I'll go France.
And I think I'm gonna pick Ireland.
I'm gonna pick Ireland.
Okay, but if Scotland got up I'd be a tinge of irritation.
For the Six Nations, I would love to see Scotland win because it'd make it just so
much
much more
sort of my
open.
team, so I would be like, but I would also. They're not my team like the All Blacks. My team.
Yeah, the Irish haven't won the Six Nations under Andy Farrell, so I would kind of like to see that. As much as I would like to see Scotland win it for the first time in donkey's years.
I'm happy either way, basically, with that one.
Win-win.
Win-win, but I think if someone like said your nuts are in a fucking vice here, Tones. We're gonna squeeze. Imagine your nuts right in a vice.
I'm picturing it. I'm closing my eyes. I'm picturing it.
Okay,
it's not
and then first of all, they're not like squeezed. They're just plopped in the vice, and you can feel the edge of the chopping, the board itself, the edge of the vice, and then also the edge of the thing that squeezes in. Okay. You can just feel it. There's no pressure at all.
Right.
And then it just says, every time like you breathe, I'm just gonna
crank that handle.
Do one crank. Yeah. So okay, let's pretend.
Okay, yeah, I'm comfortable.
Or crank.
Ooh, that's good.
Imagine if that was a way they destroyed your nuts. So every time, I'm just coming up with this.
Is there a point to this?
Every time you breathe, like you just there, and then go. Okay. Imagine that was a way that they destroyed your nuts, and then you would be in so much pain you'd want to breathe to catch your breath because that's a tortured method I've just come up with.
Yeah, some twisted thoughts going on there.
But basically like a slow crushing of the testicles related to your own breath. That would be.
The mind does wander in bizarre places. You know, I used to work at a car wash.
Yeah.
When I was a student.
You used to work at
wash cars.
Rub-a-dub car wash.
Rub-a-dub in Epsom. I used to work there.
Exactly in a Mark Ellis game once.
That's right. There was once when I just bought a chocolate bar, and my job.
How is this a tangent from my?
Basically, to show that minds can go in weird places.
Testicle torture.
So there's a car coming out of the machine.
Yes.
Right, and my job is to wipe down the windows, which are wet. Right, because they've just come out of the car wash. The thing blow dries it, but it never gets that all. So you just wipe it down with a rag. I've just shoved an entire Kit Kat into my mouth, so I've got a mouth full of chocolate, and I'm wiping down the windows, and my brain's just going, spit the chocolate on the windscreen, spit all over the windscreen. I'm like, fuck off! No, why would I do that?
No, I understand that.
But it's just like your brain just goes weird places. Like, why would you? Why is that the thought that comes to my mind?
I used to go to church and think to myself because my family's Catholic,
right?
And I'd be at church. I'd be like a 13-year-old and be like, imagine if I just screamed out, "Eat my asshole, bitch!" Just at the top of my voice. So I'd always just come up with profound things that I would want to yell out.
Nice.
But I never quite did. But yeah, I often have those sort of random thoughts. Like
you usually don't express them. You just kind of keep them buried away in your brain.
But I'm the kind of weirdo that will like knock the person next to me and go, "Should I yell out, eat my asshole, bitch?"
Other sports.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Now, you are into your UFC.
I do like my UFC.
So I decided to tune in so briefly for I think 2 minutes and 4 seconds of Jon Jones's fight, and that was underwhelming.
It was well, like the rest of the card was actually very good.
Okay, I don't know what any of the other fights.
Alex Grasso beat Shevchenko, which was a great fight. She's an incredible boxer, but Shevchenko's just got threats everywhere and was kind of probably winning on the scorecards.
Right.
But you got her in a rear naked choke, and the rear naked choke generally rear naked choke. They're not. It's not porn. Usually you want to get it under the throat.
Right.
But Grasso, and she's not a jiu-jitsu girl or a wrestler or anything like that. But Shevchenko went for a spinning back kick, and as she spun, she kind of got caught, and then Grasso, just third Mexican champion at the moment, which is huge for the UFC, jumped on her. Got the hooks in, you know what I mean by the hooks, it's the 2 feet.
Okay.
Got him behind and then just cranked the jaw.
Wow.
And the cranking of the jaw, generally people don't choke from it because they can breathe. It's just really uncomfortable.
Right.
But just was there, had a good 2.5 minutes.
Wow.
And it was there for so long, had the hook so deep, didn't quite get under the jaw. But it was incredible because when Shevchenko, who was definitely the favourite, finally tapped, there was this big freaking white mark where there was no blood just across her face, and then that was massive. Brutal. And there'll be an immediate rematch for that one because Shevchenko's been such a great champion.
Wow.
But yes, Garn and Jon Jones. Do you know anything about Jon Jones?
They talked him up in the pre-match saying this guy is unbelievable, he's gone up a weight grade. Basically,
he is a very, very complicated.
And he hadn't fought for a while.
3 years.
Wow.
So he is one of the most complicated athletes you could ever imagine.
Complicated how?
He is probably the greatest UFC fighter of all time, the greatest martial artist we've ever seen.
He can win in a lot of ways?
Yeah, he can wrestle you, he can strike you, he's great on the ground, he's just got incredible fighting IQ.
Right.
But he's also an absolute shithead. Like, in terms of outside the cage. Like, he's a brilliant... He's had so many controversies outside of the cage. He's been caught for steroids a number of times. He's been involved in...
Does that take away from his legacy?
100%. He's been involved in a hit and run on a pregnant woman.
Holy shit.
He was done in Vegas a couple of years ago for having... It was done for having a gun and taking shots, and then there was another time, I think it was last year or the year before. He's got such a checkered past.
Sounds like a bit of a douche outside the ring.
Yeah, he's got such a checkered past. He got done for assaulting his fiancée, and doing all sorts of stuff. But
makes me not want to root for this guy.
But then you see him when he actually does press, and he's always like, I'm just so thankful to these people. Humble. He's super humble. He says all the right things. He does all the right things, and he always comes back and goes, I've made mistakes. You know, he always talks about how he's found Jesus and so thankful for everyone praying for him. And he starts all the interviews by it's just so, he went on Sky, one of the Sky Sport channels. Yeah. UFC on Sky basically was what it's called, or something along those lines. With I can't remember the name of Princess. She's great. But he was like, I'm so blessed to be here. I'm like, dude, you going from your car on your phone to a country that's... Oh,
so it was actually for New Zealand audience.
Yeah, wow. And he was like, it's such a privilege to be on this channel and all that sort of stuff. And
when it's probably the 30th interview.
Yeah, but he says all the right things, comes across as super humble, and he's always been really good at saying the right things, but just an absolute douchebag outside the ring. Undefeated. Well, he's got...
he got disqualified once.
He's got a no contest, and he's got a loss. And his only loss was due to kneeing a grounded opponent or kicking a grounded opponent, which is you can get disqualified for, basically. Okay. It's one of the few rules.
Apparently, he's a pretty good fighter because
he's an incredible fighter.
Apart from a kick to the nuts, he didn't really get even touched.
He's next level. He's the greatest of all time.
He made it look so easy. The commentators couldn't believe when what was the guy's name?
Cyril
Gane tapped.
Frenchman. Yeah.
They didn't even know that he'd had him.
Wait, did he hit him? It was almost wasn't it? It was.
He just had him right under the throat, basically.
Yeah, it was not. I kind of thought it was like a dast, but it was very, very impressive. Just weighing him down on his head, chest above the back of the thing, like a cruncher tackle they have in the NRL, and just it was under the throat, but didn't look like it from the angle.
Didn't look like it, yeah.
And Cyril tapped, and Cyril had a pretty good fight against Ngannou. The fact that Ngannou, do you know who Ngannou is? Francis Ngannou is an incredible fighter. He's got the heaviest punch recorded of all time. He hits like a Mack truck, literally, well, not literally, but he's amazing.
Right.
He lost to Cyril Gane. He beat Cyril Gane, and he beat him when his knees were buggered, and he beat him with wrestling. And he's not a wrestler at all. So people were like, well, if Ngannou can take him down and dominate him on the ground, what's Jon Jones going to do to him? So
they were right.
Jon Jones hasn't fought for 3 years. His last fight was against Dominic Reyes, who's gone on a 3-fight losing skid since then. And that is the one fight that people think that he lost, but he won it on the scorecards. I think, was it a split? Sorry, you wanted to... What were your thoughts on the fight? It was over quickly.
It was just a bit anticlimactic because they build it up so much. At least if you watch a rugby game which has got massive billing, it still goes the distance even if it doesn't live up to the billing. But I guess that's the nature of the UFC, that you could get a fight where one guy's losing and then bam, one hit, he's suddenly knocked out. But it's the risk. Some of those fights are just over remarkably quickly. And there's something less satisfying about a submission than a knockout. I don't know what it is. What was that fight where McGregor knocked out that Brazilian guy? Yeah, with one hit. That was
13 seconds.
That was satisfying in a way because it was just oh.
And to be fair, the heavyweights are notorious for going quite short, just due to the fact they have got big hands, big fists, big power. First to connect a lot of time wins the fight.
Right.
But that was pretty dissatisfying. But to be fair, on the UFC, it's quite rare that that
happens.
They haven't had a lot of dud fights of late. They've had some absolute crackers. Islam and Volkanovski was pretty amazing. That one, the last pay per view.
Yeah.
I don't even know who the next pay per view was going to be.
have to check it out. Now, other sport I decided to watch at the weekend.
Was it sumo again?
Formula One started. Now, I've been watching the old Drive to Survive, the documentary series.
It was the worst weekend.
So I was getting into it, and then I even followed, like, which I've never done before. I followed Bahrain. Bahrain. I followed the practice and the qualifying, and they were like, they talk it up. They talk a good game. They're like, oh man, the distance between the fastest cars and the slowest cars is not that much this year. And then, like, Red Bull qualifies 1 and 2, and then they finish 1 and 2. Max Verstappen just drives the whole race, start to finish, without anyone even near him, and it's just boring. Oh, it was a bit dull. I mean, the great story was
the track like. Is it a good passable?
It's a modern track, so there's heaps of like places to pass and whatnot. It's not like a Monaco where it's real tight and you kind of have to do the pit strategy thing. But I mean, Fernando Alonso, who's been around for freaking donkey's years, yeah, he did, and he came back and he's driving like an Aston Martin, which is not like, you know, the big teams as far as I'm aware.
Unless you're James Bond.
Yeah, basically. So, but yeah, he like blitzed his teammate. His teammate went up his butt on like the first lap, and I don't think he knew it was his teammate.
I feel like you're my teammate, and I'd be upset if you
There you go. So, but yeah, he managed to get third, which was kind of like the for me that was the best storyline of the race.
This weekend, but I was kind of disappointed with how Ferrari went last year.
One of the Ferraris was doing all right, but then he retired with an engine problem, or Leclerc retired with like an electrical problem, and his teammate didn't do that flash.
Was it McLaren who had an absolute dog shit weekend?
Yep. One of their cars retired early, and then the other one finished, I think, last or bottom of the pack anyway. So, yeah, but there wasn't that many. Apart from the Alonso storyline getting on the podium, it was like pretty samey. The Mercedes cars don't look that quick.
It's a soap opera, though. It's a week. It's like you got to follow it like it's home and away, really, don't you?
Yeah.
You know?
So, I don't know. It was
up
like,
for any home and
it was
away
something a bit different. I put it on in the background while I was doing other stuff, and then I would turn around and be like, oh, okay. And Max Verstappen's like 14 seconds ahead.
Oh, stappers. Should we get stappers going? Is a thing?
Yeah, do it.
Stappers, everybody. Hashtag stappers. All right, so I think we've talked a bunch of rugby. We've talked a little bit about other sports. This looks like the red hand of Ulster type thing.
Oh, yeah, it does kind of.
Yeah. Let's not get into the history of that Shimmick.
Did anyone have a feces story?
I've got a couple.
Oh, God.
Okay, can I tell you about a situation? This could die here. We've been talking for a while. So, I was in a job.
Why don't we sign off? And then you can take your story. Take care, everybody, of the camera.
Shit story. So, I was in a job interview once. This isn't actually a story, but it kind of predicates the story in a way.
Right.
And they said to me, tell me about a time that you've taken a risk in your life. Oh no, and then it wasn't like in work or anything like that. And my mind wandered, as it does. And I thought about something, but I thought about a time I took a risk, and it was a very inappropriate story. And I half chuckled to myself. Right? And then the two guys interviewing me, one of them said, you kind of chuckled to yourself. What was that? And I was like, oh, no, that's not appropriate. And he was like, no, tell us that. And I was like, no. It's definitely not appropriate for a job interview. And the other guy, who was actually the owner of the company, said, well, we'll finish the interview if you don't want to tell us. And I was like, are you sure? And they were like, yes, we want to hear it. So I was in a job interview, decent paying job, and I had started this particular story. So I was 19 at the time. I was way on my gap year. I was coming home, and we spent a week in Singapore on the way home before coming back to Auckland. The night before we left, I went to one of those big sort of food court areas, and I had some prawns like in a noodle soup, and it was relatively tasty at the time. Yeah. But 4 or 5 hours later, it just started getting terrible shits. Like awful runs on the plane, like up and down, like awful, like to making you feel really sick, like you're sweating profusely and all that sort of thing. Right. We had a stopover in Sydney for 10 hours. Oof. So I was with like a bunch. I think I was with 3 other guys. At the
airport, or did you?
Well, this is the story. Okay. I was with 3 guys from Christchurch.
Sheep shaggers.
Yeah, and they just like, can we find some sheep to fuck? No. So, but I was like in such a bad way, and like when I'm talking about the shits, I'm not talking about like clunky poos or a little bit. I'm
you got the runs.
Just seriously pissing out my arsehole, just like very regularly. And they were like, we're going to go check out Sydney and see some of the sights and all that sort of stuff. And Tony, you should come. And I was like, no, I can't do it. This is not going to work for me. And then so they were like, no, come along, it'll make you feel better, get a bit of fresh air. And I was like, no. But then I was like, okay, fine, I'll come. So then I go, and lo and behold, I'm out in the fresh air, starting to get a bit of colour back.
Feeling great.
Not feeling great, but feeling better.
A bit refreshed, yeah.
Feeling a bit refreshed, and we're like, oh, this is good. And we go, do touristy things and all this sort of stuff. And then we go to the Sydney Opera House. And so we go to Sydney Opera House, that's shaped like a thing. And then we're sitting on the steps. And then as I was sitting on the steps, I was sitting amongst the team, and I felt a little bit, this is where the risk comes in, I felt a little bit of gas. And I thought to myself, do I risk a fart? So we took a fart on the Sydney Opera House steps. I went to fart, and I just completely shat myself. I completely shat myself, and I was 19 at the time, coming back from Europe. I had literally $0 in my account, no money at all, just a bus fare to get back to the airport, no change of clothes, no change of undies, no change of anything.
Wow.
So kind of found a toilet, tried to clean myself, but just reeked of absolute shit. It was not good.
You used to go a flight together.
And then I had a flight to get. And then finally, when I actually said goodbye to my mates who were actually flying to Christchurch.
Did they know you shit yourself?
Yeah, no, actually, there was one thing I did say. I just went, guys, I just shat myself. And they just cracked up. It was the funniest thing in the world. So anyway, I managed to get on the flight and all that sort of thing. And I saw the guy.
How about the person sitting next to you?
I can tell you about that as well. So I went to sit down next to the guy, and obviously I'm stinking to high heaven, terrible shit. And then I said to him, mate, I'm sorry, I've got to be honest, I shat myself today. And he just went, oh, for fuck's sake! Yeah, so he wasn't happy at all. And then I finally got home, and then there was a crowd of my friends waiting to greet me. They haven't seen me for over a year. And then I was and they came up to me and gave me a hug, and then they quickly dispersed as soon as they got near me. But I told that story in a job interview.
Did you get the job?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
Yeah, I got the job. I'm not working there anymore. But yeah, the story was, because that was the risk that I took.
You took your little trip around Sydney at the risk of shitting yourself, and it didn't pay off.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it did pay off. It's
Exactly.
a story
Exactly.
that you're telling the internet.
That's fine. I'm not ashamed of it. Yeah, and I managed to finally come home with shit in my trousers and got back home and changed my undies. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's my story. But maybe we'll do the little time code thing. So you can go ahead to that part if you want to hear the shit story. There might be a big jump in your thing. But anyway, this podcast has taken a few different tangents, especially that one at the end. Is there anything you'd like to add? Anything you'd like to surmise? Anything?
There's rugby on at the weekend.
Yes. Anything other than Six Nations you're relatively interested in?
I'll be watching the Super Rugby.
The Drua?
Yeah, the Drua game was the big watch for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Who are the Blues playing? Because we're Blues fans. A team!
That's how much. I mean, I'm as bad as everybody. I'm as bad as the crowds at the Super round.
Yes, but who's not bad? It's you guys for watching or listening, and we appreciate you watching on YouTube, or if you're listening where, Mark?
Spotify.
Stitcher.
Google Podcasts.
iHeartRadio.
I don't know any of the other ones.
Apple Podcasts.
Oh, that's another one.
Yes.
I don't
wherever you're listening to your podcast, and also remember cyberbully my shit. It's good for the algo.
Do we want to shit stories or do we not want shit stories?
Do they want my? You're asking them. I've got another cracker, by the way.
I've got one as well, but I think maybe I should say it.
Okay, tell us if you want more shit stories, and I've got one more very good one.
Clanger.
A real cracker. Anyway, great podcast, great work,
Good to see
fantastic, and yeah, thank you very much.
Take care, folks.